Alright, we are back with another how-to.
Oh, come on, you did it well last time.
Emily, take over.
Vangood!
Good.
Just as planned.
We are going to talk about a problem, not so much with the game itself, all the way anyway, as much as a problem with the players.
This is another how to be a good player episode.
Kind of.
Acknowledging when it's your fault.
Yeah. People seem to have a hard time with this.
Players in recent time have become complacent in the fact that because the game isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic, you don't have to try hard to be good at the game. And therefore any mistakes you make aren't your faults, but the game's mechanics' fault.
Kind of logic is that, guys? Just stop.
Yeah. It's like, yes, this game may not have the most complex rules in the world. Part of the reason why I like this game is because it doesn't have super complex rules or a billion rules.
Yep.
Like certain games we could mention. But it doesn't mean that there's any excuse to decide I'm only going to be good enough at the core rules and not think about anything else.
Because this game is a lot deeper than its surface looks.
Yeah. You gotta know how your deck works, you gotta know when and where to drop things or to what attack certain things, etc. It's not just black and white. You gotta actually try when you play the game. We're not saying be super competitive. We're saying try.
Think.
I don't think it's that it's too much to ask for.
Yeah, the skill ceiling is not that high, people.
It's really not. So it's
I mean, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I was a nub.
Yeah, just try. And yeah, there's several examples. You care to list any examples, ideas of when it is a player's fault or when it is the game, it just a bad draw?
I can think of a lot of misplays I've seen. Granted,
this is a good one to start with.
Most of the people in these scenarios realized it was. And didn't blame the game on it.
And that is an example of a good player. Acknowledging when it is their fault.
Toward the end of our regional run, there was this Shadow Paladin player who guarded for 2-pass, and, well, he ended up 5k short on the last attack because obviously he didn't have enough to do the whole turn, and he would have won if he just guarded 1-pass because the guy didn't flip the trigger.
And I'm pretty sure we talked about that before, about the 1-pass versus 2-pass thing. But again, that's the point. It's like, I remember his friends were saying this is how the game goes, and it's like
we lost together and all that.
Exactly.
It was more of a consolation thing, at least from where I was standing.
Well, I was like Bexton, but my point is that if you gotta think about it. You can't just throw the cards down and hope it works unless you're Gold Paladin, because that's how I play them.
High stress situations get to people, I guess.
But the best example is at locals where the problem usually occurs, right?
Yeah. Oh, chain didn't go off. Didn't
go off. Good game, everybody. Yeah, they just immediately stopped trying, or just discount their lost beam because they didn't get the chain.
Even though it's totally possible to win some of those.
Yeah.
Not all of those.
You use a deck that doesn't even use its chain, even though it could use the chain.
It's true. Wins enough by itself. It's not the same as not having units to play in the front or the back, and losing because you couldn't make good enough numbers. Or when you get gridlock, you didn't get your chain off, so you're 1k less than you wanted to be.
And maybe you didn't do the super special awesome things along the way. That doesn't mean your boss
It's-
stops working.
Yeah, it's still a Vanguard, it's still grade 3, and you're still getting cards from it. The rear guards are there for a reason.
In most ride chains, it's like even if you didn't get to do the super special awesome, it usually still gives a bonus of some sort.
And in certain cases, those bonuses you get for doing the ride chains aren't even all that good to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's whatever.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is a really good indicator is pay attention to how many triggers your opponent gets. I know I have trouble doing this, but every so often I'll look back on a game and be like, they didn't get any triggers at all that whole game, and I lost. I did something wrong. So it is a matter of you might want to pay attention to that and try to learn from it.
You could. Usually I don't, only because it's either I have enough to block it or I don't. It doesn't matter how many triggers they have left.
Yeah.
It's just anything that usually happens.
And you just get a lot of these easy misplays, an opportunity comes up where you can 10k for no pass against their Vanguard, and you really should, unless you have an immediate need for that damage.
That's something I need to learn to do. I always let it
It is a good one to do. But if you don't need that extra damage, no point in taking it if you can block it. Because it gives yourself a good gap that you might use.
Pin cushions are good.
Especially since later on they're probably going to get bigger.
Or, there are a lot of people who will always take the first attack. And things just sort of snowball, and they're like, oh god, why did this happen?
Yeah.
It's
Don't
like
do that
taking
in
the
Gold
first
Paladin.
attack is cool and all if you have the use for that damage. But if you're gray locked or something, or you can't afford to block the attacks early because you got a bunch of triggers in your hand, do it. It's you don't have immediate use for any of your things. Why take the early damage when you can just block hidden now and it'll just be a free hit you can take later.
Yeah, especially if you're grade locked and you've just got a handful of triggers. I know you just said that, but
I did
there's
just
Again, I don't know.
Defending rear guards against especially stubborn opponents.
Yeah. I know one guy who just made it a sport of defending his everything. No matter what I attacked, early in the game, he would just protect everything.
Even if it was a
Yes.
grade 0 trigger that he put down for whatever.
Anything it was, just because for at least that time frame, I was taking damage and he wasn't. So by the time we got to grade, I had a 200 turn or two into grade 3. I had 4, he had 1. But then when my turn came back around, he had 2 cards in his hand.
And of
Yes.
course you
It's
smack him for 3 or 4 that turn,
Mhm.
and you
You're good
can't
at
do
critical.
anything.
And I got all these cards in my hand because I haven't been blocking every single attack. So it's guaranteed that I'm going to be getting through that turn, and of course I did.
It's funny
Yes.
watching people just try to stop everything, especially when you get a pressure deck like Doge or Stern going. They're just
It's just crazy.
digging their own graves on that one.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's always the reverse problem. I just let
Yes.
everything hit. We learned that with beast deities when I went up against them.
Yeah.
You can hit,
Don't-
even though you're
don't
going to
do that.
stand
Yeah.
again.
Don't do that. That's another thing, actually. Thank you. It's
Knowing what
Knowing
the
what
other
your-
person's cards
yes.
do,
Yeah, knowing your
before they
yes.
play them.
Yeah, knowing your own deck is not enough to play. You have to know what your opponent's decks are based around doing and what they're good at doing, so you can know how to take them down.
Yeah, that's the
If-
part where I'm learning right now.
if-
I'm at that step of
yeah.
learning.
Because the other day we were playing against her with beast deities, and at the time she didn't know, or at the very least wasn't paying attention to the main rule we gave her: always kill their rear guards. They can't do crap without them.
I was just like, oh, for some reason my brain registered as always kill the rear guards as, well, if it's anything that intercepts, kill it. If it's a grade 3, just let it
It's
sit there.
anything at all
Well,
with
anything with the
grapplers.
name, it has to die.
Yes, if it says Beast Deity in its name, it has to die, because if you don't, they're just going to stand it, and you're going to cry, because they'll just kill you with it.
I learned that
Yes.
lesson the hard way.
You were
It's-
having trouble
it's-
with like Aquaforce all weekend.
Yep.
Um,
It's a...
I always
Yes.
just crumble in the face of Duke. Granted, that's mostly bad matchup talking, but
Yeah. Although I did figure out my answer for Aquaforce, and here's a free one for you. If you don't have anything that's, super important to your plan, just let the thing hit you early on. You can take it once.
Maelstrom's
Yes.
Limit Break, that is.
Yeah, Maelstrom's Limit Break. You can take the Maelstrom Limit Break once, or maybe twice, if you really don't want to get rid of anything in your hand. You'll think it yourself much later, because it's either they gain a card and you lose a card, or you lose
You lose like
3 or 4 cards. You gotta ask yourself, is that worth it? Sometimes.
You don't
It's-
want that
it's-
gap to widen, and that's what they're
it's-
going for.
Yeah.
That's why they
Yes.
poke you for 5s over and over and over again.
Yep. So if I had any advice for that one, it's block the small guys, just take his hits. If you do hit right, you'll probably be at 3 damage, maybe 4, but you'll be alive. And you'll only lose like 1 guy from it. It's worth it, I think. And that's really just how it goes. You just gotta learn as you play. Take those losses as a way to get better, instead of a way to say it's the game's fault.
This is Emily
Yes.
episode because it is me, just like I'm learning the game, and so for me it's always okay, I lost. I always go, was it my fault or was it luck? And I try to figure it out and break it down.
It's funny. Luck is usually a factor, but usually more times than not, the loss is because of a mistake
Somewhere.
that someone
Even if
made.
it's like
Yes.
subtle and you didn't
Yes.
know it was a mistake at the
At the time, it more often than not is because you made a move that you probably shouldn't have made, which is surprising. It's unlike certain other games where I can mention where you lose because your opponent killed you in 1 turn before you could do anything. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
let's see.
Yes.
My hand's pretty
Yes.
good, but I'm going second. Oh,
Oh, well,
now this
shoot.
hand isn't gonna do anything.
Yeah. Yes. It's like, that's the thing about this game. It is a lot less intense than those games, but you know what? That gives you plenty of room to learn. Because you're not going to die in 2 turns in this game like you do in other games. Unless you are the worst
kind of stupid.
Yeah, unless you're the worst guy stupid who lets every single attack hit.
Like I just this past
It's like-
couple days, I've seen some cases of that, and people
Yes.
do that.
I went against speaking of that, I got another story. I went against a Itachi Kaze player at Nets, and I'm not going to talk about this during the actual thing.
Well, no, like
but
that has nothing to do with the weekend. Really.
Yeah, but this guy was so confident that he could beat me because he had this plan of put everything on his circular Spino and not make any other numbers.
Mediocre numbers.
He was using the Raptor kernel, but not its chain, just the grade 3. And he got me once, only because I couldn't get past grade 1. And even then, I got him to 5. And then when I beat him in our next fight, he would just say, "I hate gold paladins. They always do this. They always do that."
Weren't
It's
you
like
playing Royals?
I was playing golds just to prove a point. Not in the actual tournament, but outside of the tournament, I was playing golds just to prove a point.
Yeah,
And it did.
They're dumb.
Yeah, they are dumb. What are you going to do about it, is the question. Apparently he chose to just blame...
Roll over and
Yes.
die.
He apparently just chose to roll over and just blame the fact that they're gold paladins instead of, making consistent numbers, which Tachikaze can do. because they have the means to do it, despite what a certain someone we know thinks.
That's another thing.
But that's for another time too. Anyway.
It's not Gold Paladin's fault either.
It's,
You go against Gold Paladins. Yes, sometimes.
I don't know. It is a lot of the time Gold Paladin's fault.
But
That's like the
don't always
exception.
just be like, oh hey, it's Gold Paladin's
But-
fault.
It's Gold Paladin's fault when you Vivian into a Loppier, into a Garrett.
Yeah,
Like,
then it's
I did
their
one of
fault.
those
It's
casual games this weekend. Oh, God.
That is, yeah, or
So dirty.
or when you Vivian into a Loppier into a Pelennor after you
like-
attack.
They can do stupid things.
They can do stupid things, but the
But
thing
then again,
yes.
a lot of the time you have at least a shot at
But
preventing them.
the thing also is, though, I didn't do any of those things then. I got the Pelennor late in the game. That was the thing that turned him into just yelling at Gold Paladins from praising his circular Spino.
And, like,
When his thing started only doing 22 against my thing that got a trigger, so it was 15, i.e., I don't care. And it's like, that's what I mean. It was his fault because he was playing so awkwardly, but he didn't, and I don't even have the heart to tell him that you're playing badly. Shape it up.
some people are like
It's-
that. They're hard
yes.
to.
Yeah, hard to tell them that they're doing it wrong. It's not the Paladin's fault that you decided to put everything into one column and make your other ones hit for like nothing. One of them columns were hitting like for 14.
Well, that's
It's-
good forever.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, don't do that. I don't care what you think is a better idea. Having one column that's not your vanguard of all things hit for everything and the other two hit for nothing is not going to get you anywhere. And to think it will otherwise, or think it's the game's fault that you didn't win, you're just asking yourself to lose at that point. And it's no wonder he didn't make it into the thing.
Incidentally,
It's-
one of the teams who topped the last chance qualifier won the whole thing.
Yep, ironically.
Any other
Yes.
cases?
Well, we have one person we could talk about in particular, but they'll remain nameless for now.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
everything they do, pretty much,
This episode was
It's-
weird because we were
yes.
talking about them.
yeah, it's
And we're terrible.
they were terrible,
We are
but
terrible.
it's true.
They don't
Because
learn.
They don't learn because they don't want to listen. This game is a game of numbers, yes, but it's also the game of, well, cards, trading cards. You can't just predict everything that will happen, and as a result, you can't just assume that cards that don't look like they'll work on paper won't work at all.
We've proven that
Yes.
multiple times.
Yeah, multiple. Still doesn't believe they'll work, even when she loses it to them.
Ride once,
Yes.
soulless deck. Include Libras. It's fine. But some people don't.
Some people don't think that what they're doing is wrong, is what I'm trying to say from this little tangent.
Like, alternatives
Yes.
don't exist.
Yes. It's like, no, this is not Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I said before. You can make a good deck that can get you to nationals like we did, without following the same formula that most people use for those clans. It's not cut and dry. You can find alternative things that work because that's how the game works. It gives you options to do different things to work with, things to try.
You can even make
It's-
decks that things like on paper look like, oh god, this looks awful, and then you use it, and if you work with it correctly, it's like, this is actually pretty good.
Yep.
Everything
And
Japan
yes,
does.
everything Japan does, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where, look, I get you guys have your pride. I get you guys don't want to acknowledge that you guys may not be good. But if you fall into any of the categories we mentioned during this conversation, start thinking maybe it's you. not it's the cards.
Get an horrible inferiority complex like me, where you think that everything is your fault.
Or do that. Any other final words?
I guess that covers.
Remember pretty well. How about you?
I need a whipping.
Yes, you did. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up all for us over here too. So, guess that's it for this episode of How To.
Vangood. Thank you.
Hopefully we can think of more as we go. Maybe we'll get some more videos up. Now that we're out of the first half of the year's tournament season, we should have more time to do videos.
Yeah.
Expect the national rant to be coming up soon.
Yep.
If it's not already up.
Yeah, way to break the illusion, Emily. Bye, everybody.
Bye.